Imagine waking up and feeling as if the whole world has lost its color, as if every step is too heavy, as if even breathing requires an effort you simply don't have. Have you ever felt this way? As if you were watching your own life from a distance without really being a part of it. Depression is not just sadness. It's not just being unmotivated or having a bad day. It's an emptiness that eats away inside. A kind of emotional anesthesia where everything loses its meaning. Things that once brought pleasure now seem trivial. Simple activities like taking a shower or replying to a message become unbearable challenges. It's as if a dense fog covers everything, obscuring even the possibility of a better future. But the worst part? The feeling that no one really understands. That around you, people continue to live normally, as if it were easy to just think positive or try harder. But you've tried. You've tried in every way to get out of this. And deep down, you feel like you're failing, as if the problem is you. But here's the truth. The problem is not you. Depression is real. It is not laziness. It is not weakness. It is not a lack of willpower. It has deep roots, and understanding this can be the first step to getting out of this hole. Because yes, there is a way out. Throughout this video, we will explore depression in a way that no one has explained to you before. We will go beyond superficial explanations and dive into what is really happening in your mind. We will talk about what science has discovered, but also about what society hides. And above all, I want you to know, you're not alone. If something inside you resonated with these words, stay with me. Perhaps, just perhaps, this is the beginning of a change. Most people do not understand what it really means to be depressed. They confuse it with sadness, discouragement, or laziness. But if you have ever experienced it firsthand, you know that depression goes far beyond that. It is not just a fleeting emotion. It is a deep state of mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion. It feels as if your own mind has become a maze with no exit, where every thought weighs tons and every attempt to react seems futile. Imagine carrying an invisible burden all the time, something that drains your energy even before you get out of bed. The things that once brought you joy, listening to music, reading, going out with friends, now feel empty. And the worst part is that you can't even explain it properly to others. How do you say you feel a weight on your chest even when there is no apparent reason? How do you explain that, even surrounded by people, you feel alone? Sigmund Freud, one of the greatest names in psychology, viewed depression as a form of displaced mourning. He believed that, on some level, those who are depressed are mourning something they have lost. And sometimes that loss is not concrete, but emotional. It could be the loss of a dream, a version of oneself, or a sense of identity. Jung, on the other hand, saw depression as a call for transformation. For him, when your mind throws you into this deep state of discouragement, it may be because something inside you needs to change. But modern science has also brought important explanations. Studies show that depression alters brain chemistry, reducing the production of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, substances responsible for pleasure and well-being. This means that, biologically, your brain starts to function differently when you are depressed. It is not a matter of willpower. It is not something you can simply overcome overnight. And here comes one of the cruelest aspects of depression: guilt. Have you noticed how it convinces you that everything is your responsibility? That if you feel this way, it must be because you have failed at something, because you are not trying hard enough. But that is not true. Depression is an illness, not a choice. And the more you understand this, the more you can see that this internal voice that accuses you is not yours but a symptom of the condition itself. But if depression is so devastating, why does it seem to be increasingly present in the modern world? Why do so many people, even those who apparently have everything, feel empty inside? The answer may lie in the environment we live in a society that pushes us into an endless cycle of pressure, comparison, and disconnection. And that is exactly what we will talk about in the next part. Have you ever wondered why depression seems to be increasingly present? In theory, we live in the age of comfort. We have advanced technology, unlimited entertainment, and access to information with a click. So why do so many people feel emptier and more hopeless than ever? The truth is that the modern world sells us an idea of happiness that, in practice, is impossible to achieve. We are bombarded every day with images of perfect lives, flawless bodies, and fairy tale relationships. Social media has created a parallel reality where everyone seems to be happy, fulfilled, and successful, except for you. And this constant comparison is one of the biggest triggers for depression. Zygmunt Bauman called this liquid modernity. According to him, we live in a society where everything is transient: jobs, relationships, values. Nothing is solid. Nothing is guaranteed. We are always chasing something, but as soon as we achieve it, a new goal appears to pursue. You can never rest. You can never feel satisfied because the system we live in needs your constant dissatisfaction to stay afloat. And what happens when you can't keep up with this pace? You feel like a failure. And depression finds fertile ground in that feeling because, on top of everything, it comes with a silent isolation. You look around and think everyone is living normally while you feel trapped inside your own mind. But the truth is that many are also suffering. It's just that no one talks about it. Moreover, our society disconnects us from ourselves. We are constantly distracted by our phones, by work, by daily obligations. We don't have time to feel, to reflect, to simply exist. And when we finally stop, what do we find? A terrifying emptiness. Carl Jung said that depression can be a call from the psyche for transformation. But how can we transform something when we are trapped in a system that prevents us from even looking inward? The first step is to understand that this feeling of disconnection is not just an individual problem. It is a symptom of a world that treats us like machines, not like human beings. But what if depression were not just a problem to be eliminated? What if, instead of just fleeing from it, we tried to understand what it has to tell us? Is there a hidden message behind this suffering? In the next section, we will explore the invisible side of depression, what society teaches us to ignore, but which may be the key to breaking this cycle. And what if I told you that depression is not just a weight that needs to be eliminated, but a signal that something inside you is asking to be heard? We live in a society that teaches us to flee from suffering at any cost. If you are sad, distract yourself. If you feel anxiety, take a pill. If something hurts, pretend it doesn't exist. But what if that pain had a purpose? What if, instead of just silencing depression, you try to understand what it is trying to tell you? Carl Jung believed that depression is not just an illness, but a psychic process. For him, depression can be a call for transformation, an attempt by your mind to make you see something you have been avoiding. Think about it. You have always heard that happiness is the natural state of being human. But what if that is a lie? What if discomfort, melancholy, and existential crisis are essential parts of the growth process? Often depression arises when there is a disconnection between who you really are and the life you are leading. You follow what you were told you should do, but something inside you feels that something is wrong. and that something doesn't disappear. It accumulates in the unconscious until one day it pulls you down, forcing you to look within. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But depression steals that why. It convinces you that there is no meaning, that nothing is worth it. But is that an end or an invitation to discover something deeper? Perhaps depression is not just a chemical problem in the brain, but a symptom of a life that is not aligned with what truly matters to you. Depression may be trying to show you that certain things in your life need to change. Maybe you are stuck in a routine that is destroying you. Perhaps you are surrounded by people who drain your energy. Maybe you have spent so much time trying to please others that you have forgotten who you really are. And then your mind, in a final act of defense, simply pulls you inward so that you finally realize what is wrong. But if depression has something to teach us, it means there is a way to start getting out of it. Small steps can create big changes, even when everything seems lost. And that is what we will talk about in the next part. How small actions can initiate a chain reaction capable of transforming how you feel. When you are depressed, even the simplest things seem impossible. Getting out of bed, brushing your teeth, replying to a message, everything requires an effort that you simply don't have. And the more you stop doing, the worse you feel. It's a cruel cycle. Depression paralyzes you, and paralysis deepens the depression. But here's a fact that no one tells you. You don't have to win this battle all at once. Small actions, almost insignificant at first glance, can create a domino effect and slowly rebuild your sense of control over your own life. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, said that a human being can endure any suffering as long as they have a purpose. But when we're depressed, we lose that connection to a why. The world becomes meaningless. So, if a big goal seems unattainable right now, start with the minimum. Something that can be done in less than 5 minutes. Something so small that your mind can't find an excuse not to do it. This could simply be getting up and drinking a glass of water. It could be opening the window and taking a deep breath. It could be writing a sentence about how you are feeling. Does it seem like little? Maybe. But the point is that these small gestures start to send a new message to your brain. I still have control over something. Depression wants you to believe that nothing makes a difference. But when you take a first step, no matter how small, you break that illusion. And one step leads to the next. Walking for 5 minutes can lead to a 10-minute walk. Writing one sentence can turn into a longer outpouring. And slowly, without you realizing it, you start to move again. Another essential thing: connect with something outside of your mind. Depression makes you feel trapped inside your own thoughts, and often those thoughts are distorted, negative, and self-destructive. Something as simple as taking care of a plant, feeding a pet, or even exchanging a few words with a stranger can help create a small bridge out of that mental isolation. But there is a mistake that many people make when trying to improve. And this mistake can make depression feel even more suffocating. Often, in seeking help or trying to change, people end up feeling even more guilty for not being able to get out of it immediately. In the next section, we will talk about this trap and how to avoid it. Seeking help when you're depressed should be something simple, right? But in practice, many people feel even worse when they try to take that step. This is because there is a significant misconception in the way society views recovery from depression. The world tells you, just seek help and everything will get better. But what happens when you do that and still don't feel well? What happens when you take the medication, go to therapy, try to change your routine, and yet the depression is still there? The biggest mistake people make when trying to overcome depression is believing that improvement needs to be quick and linear, as if there were a reset button that once pressed would bring you back to normal. But that's not how it works. Recovering from depression is a long process, full of ups and downs. And if you're not prepared for that, you may end up feeling frustrated and thinking you're failing, which, ironically, only deepens the problem. The truth is that there is no single path to healing. What works for one person may not work for another. Some people improve with therapy, others need medication, some find relief in spirituality, physical exercise, or art. The important thing is not to find a perfect solution immediately, but to keep trying, experimenting, and adjusting until you discover what works for you. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But when you're depressed, it seems impossible to find that why. That's why the search for help can often be frustrating, because you want to feel better immediately. And when that doesn't happen, guilt sets in, along with the feeling that nothing will ever change. Another common mistake is relying on people who don't understand the depth of depression. Have you ever heard phrases like, "just have willpower," or "there are people in worse situations than you"? Comments like these not only don't help, but they can also make you feel even more isolated. The reality is that not everyone has the emotional preparedness to offer the necessary support. This means that choosing who you share your pain with is essential. Sometimes a conversation with the wrong person can do more harm than good. But here's the most important point. If you are seeking help and still haven't found something that works, it doesn't mean there is no way out. It simply means you haven't found the right approach yet. Recovery doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, almost imperceptibly. And when you least expect it, you realize that you're enduring a little more, that the weight has become a little lighter. And that's why the final part of this video is so important. Depression tries to convince you that it is part of who you are, but that is a lie. You are not your depression. And in the next segment, we will talk about how to reclaim that truth and take back control of your own story. If there's one thing depression does better than anything else, it's convincing you that it's a part of you, that it is your identity, your natural state, that you have always been this way and always will be. But that is a lie. Have you noticed how your mind creates stories about who you are? If you have spent too much time in depression, it may have become the filter through which you see everything, including yourself. You might believe that you have always been sad, always been weak, always had something wrong. But try to remember, there was a time, even if distant, when you didn't feel this way. And if there was a time before depression, it means that it is not you. Depression is like a dense cloud covering the sky. It obscures the light, making it seem like the sun has disappeared forever. But the sun doesn't disappear. It's still there behind the clouds, waiting for the right moment to reappear. And the truth is this: you are still here. There is still something inside you that wants to continue. Something that, even in the darkness, chose to watch this video until the end. That is not insignificant. It means that no matter how small, there is still a part of you that hasn't given up. And it is to that part that you need to hold on. Depression does not define who you are. It is not your final destination. It can be a phase, a process, a call for change, but not your identity. You are much more than what your mind says when you are at your worst. Maybe everything still seems dark now. Maybe the wait continues. But now, you know there are paths, small steps that can break this cycle. Now you know you don't have to defeat depression all at once. You just need to keep moving. And more importantly, you are not alone. If this video made sense to you, if something here resonated with how you feel, I want to know. Leave a comment, even if it's just, "I understand," so that others can see and realize they are not alone in this struggle. And if this video helped you in any way, watch the next one. It is also essential for you to understand more about yourself and continue on this path of recovery. See you there.